All right, we are broadcasting live on YouTube.
Good morning. So
Morning.
And Madam Chair, we do have a quorum,
Morning.
so I can just quickly call the roll just to confirm the attendance of the members. From Albany County, Kristen Swinton appears to be here.
I'm here.
Bill Connors. Lucy McKnight. Laura Bauer is here. Scott Bendett is here. Steve Bale is here. Craig Warner is here. And Samantha Miller Herrera is here. We also have guests today, Joe Mancini, Brian Parcheski, and Luke Jacobs from Berkshire Farm, Maura Manning from Albany County, Bob Ryan, our attorney, and Amy Weinstock, our office manager here at CDRPC. Anybody I miss?
Okay, thank you, Mark. So we'll call the meeting to order, 9:01. We have our first item is the minutes from the May 17th meeting. They're enclosed in your packet. Any comments or corrections?
One correction, that was actually March 17th. It was my typo and mistake on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, we're in May. What did I say? I'm sorry, March 17th. Okay, need motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Steve, any second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Samantha. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes carry. Next item in your packet is item memo 2111, and that's the financial statements.
Right, these are financial statements through April 30th. Actual expenses for operations for Berkshire Farm through March are just over $400,000 for SD and about $615,000 for SSD. The estimated total expenses through April for SD are about $560,000, and for SSD just over $840,000. We're tracking at about 27% to budget, so slightly under budget. Par for this time of the year is 33%. You'll see the financial statements presented for you, profit and loss by class and straight profit and loss sheet by month, and then the balance sheet. Any questions on the financial statements?
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a motion to accept the financial statements?
I'll move.
Motion. Samantha, thank you. Any second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the 2020 pre-audit financial statements, memo 2112.
Right, we're a little behind this year on getting our audit started. We had a delay in completing the Q4 receivables, but now that we're able to book those receivables, we're able to present the pre-audit financial statements to you. For the year, revenues were at 81% to budget and expenses were at 86% to budget. So just slightly under where we anticipated to be for the year. I'm sorry, the PDF of the year annual financials is so small, but that's the long and the short of it. Our auditors are starting to prepare the audit, and our financial officer Tom is working with them to answer any questions that they may have. And I'm just asking for board approval of the pre-audit financial statements.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept?
I'll move.
Thank you, Samantha. Second?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Craig, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any opposition? Thank you. All right, next item is the review of the SCO/COCFS site inspection findings. It's your memo 2113.
Right, just note for the record that Bill Connors from Albany County has joined, board member, and Mike McLaughlin from the County Executive's Office has also joined the call. So during a site visit that was conducted on April 28th, combined staff from OCFS and SCOC observed a number of violations which were detailed in the supporting correspondence to my memo. And SCOC, as a follow-up, requested a variety of documents just to make sure that, Berkshire was following up and making sure that the plan to address the issues. And the issues primarily related to, the staffing crunch that's at the facility. And we'll talk more about that specifically later. In addition, there was an audit of the COVID-19 procedures, and the memo related to that was sent on May 11th. So, Joe and Luke, can you just briefly walk us through what OCFS and SCOC found during their site inspection?
Sure. When OCFS completed their site inspection, though we had the requisite number of staff in the building, we had broken up our youth, and Joe may be able to speak better on it, but we had youth in multiple classrooms to keep down conflict, and we did not have two people in each room, and we had to pull a staff off to assist with that. So a young lady was sleeping in her room, and there was nobody in checking on her for about 30 minutes. This comes down, that morning was a particularly difficult morning. We had multiple call outs, but it highlighted our need to increase our staffing level, which had been our plan all along, to continuously increase our staffing level as we proposed in our budget earlier this year. But to work with that, to make sure that we are moving forward in the correct staffing direction, working with Joe, we put together a plan where we are reporting every shift to make sure that we have the requisite number of staff on and that they're deployed correctly throughout the facility. Joe checks that every shift. And since we have begun that, we have not had any times when we have not had a staffing appropriately done in the facility. And our big push now is to make sure that we have recruiting. And I know Brian will be speaking on some of our recruiting efforts. We currently have openings at 12.5 openings for regular detention counselors. We have 2 starting tomorrow at the facility. We have 2 who have passed all background checks, additional staff, and will be getting a start date very soon. And we have 5 additional staff candidates who are in the background check process, which we will be starting as soon as possible. And we also have a very detailed recruiting plan to continue to bring new candidates in for hire. I know Joe had an interview yesterday that we're working with that potential candidate as well. And we continue to track every day to make sure that we have the right staffing on. I know Joe, and I want to thank you, Bill Connors, for your assistance in allowing probation officers to work. Joe is continuing to utilize that if necessary to make sure that we have the correct staffing numbers on. Once we achieve our staffing levels that we have proposed to hire, and in working with SCOC and their staff deployment plan, we will have enough staff to consistently fill all shifts as we need to.
And to add to that, the female resident was scheduled to be picked up at 8 in the morning that day. And I gave specific instructions, do not go out of compliance in the classrooms. And there are some options we can do is, depending on the mix of the AOs, but you always have to have 2 staff in the classrooms, whether you have 2 AOs or 8 AOs. So we were breaking them up into 2, just to, it's better to manage the behaviors with 2. So they did leave the girl. The girl was sleeping. There's a staff member in the pod that could see the room, could see the dorm, but not in that dorm. And granted that she should never have been left alone, but I think that was just a decision coming, I said, don't go out of compliance. What we should have done is combined the 2 classrooms and made it 1 and had 3 staff. And then that creates some set of problems with our colony teachers. They don't feel so comfortable having classrooms of AOs that large. So, it's a day-to-day managing it, given the razor thin margins we have with staffing. It's managing that every day. If we have a youth going out to a doctor's appointment, we need to adjust. And if we have a call in or 2 call-ins, we have to adjust, and that brings a challenge to us.
And that's, I think, a key takeaway here is that Berkshire has been operating on a razor thin margin, even in the best of times. So, they really need some more wiggle room to be able to absorb changes, call outs, particularly in the time of this pandemic, if there's, issues with COVID or otherwise. If they need to break up the population in the facility to avoid conflicts or gang relationships, you need to be able to have that staff to be able to flex. So we'll be talking about more of that later. But Berkshire did comply with the request from SCOC and OCFS to submit the variety of materials, which I'm sure Joe was super excited about, and so is Luke, to have basically a 24-hour deadline to write a 50-page book report for the regulating agencies. But they got it done, and I think we're on a good path to remedy the situation. So, and we'll talk more about staffing in a little bit, and we'll actually, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, go directly to the staffing analysis.
Sure. Any questions from anyone on this item?
I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the razor thin staffing issue, when they're hired, what is the training that they have allocated?
So their training time, once they start, these staff that start on Thursday, for instance, they will be completed with their training and ready to go onto the floor on June 9th. Our staffing plan, it takes about 3 weeks to fully train staff to make sure that they're fully prepared to go on. So staff that start tomorrow will be on the floor on their shift on June 9th. However, even when they go onto the floor for the first week or so, they're going to be working very closely with their supervisor to make sure that they understand how to do their job in the line. But they will be in 3 weeks ready to go.
And I was, before the meeting here, I was going back, looking at the schedules back in October, November, and towards November, we were getting 10 staff, 9, 10, we were consistent. December, and then we haven't recovered yet from the COVID. We lost some staff, and we have not been able to staff up since COVID. And also bringing in additional program, you need a little bit more staffing to do that. So those have been some of the challenges we've had. Good news is we have maintained a high level of safety and security, but looking at creating some different programming, we're going to need, a little bit more staff to be able to handle that.
Yeah, and with our staffing plan that we have, it would put 11 to 12 staff on all of our waking hour shifts, which is where we want to be.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Background.
Staffing analysis.
So yeah, this was a staffing analysis that was provided by SCOC just to Berkshire, really focusing in on the care-related staff. So it does include any of the ancillary staff. And it really basically confirms the sort of budgeted staffing levels that Berkshire presented last year, but it parses it out in a way that I think is helpful for the board to understand where positions are needed, how many shifts, how many people you need to fully staff a shift. And then the big takeaway for me from this on page, let's see. Screw it up here. So there's basically the plan of action here accommodates the sort of flexible staff. So in order to fully staff a shift, you need to budget for and plan for staffing for, not just one-to-one, but you need to overstaff so that you can absorb some changes as they may arise, either due to call-outs or sickness or unexpected things that happen. And so this basically just outlines, how many staff you need per shift to maintain compliance with the regulations, and then also additional staff that may be needed to respond to any of those unexpected issues that may come up, so that the staffing is much more resilient to be able to continue to operate the facility safely and to the regulations. So again, it does confirm the sort of staffing levels that Berkshire presented in their annual budget and that they're working to get back to right now. Any questions on that? And I guess with that, if you don't mind, Madam President, we can move on to the review of the secure detention recruiting and retention plan. So this is, something that Berkshire has been working on, but has focused more attention on of late. From a macro perspective, and wearing my other hat as a person that does data analysis, there's a significant. The economy is in a weird place right now, and the multiple organizations are having challenges staffing up, and that comes from food service, and it continues through to nonprofit service organizations like Berkshire Farm. Generally, the industry sectors that are more lower paid sectors have been impacted tremendously by the pandemic, and there are multiple theories why that is, why we have multiple job openings, but we don't have people applying for those jobs and willing to take those positions. So Berkshire developed this recruitment and retention plan in part as a response to the OCFS and SCOC inspection. It includes a number of different strategies to not only recruit new personnel, and that's full-time personnel, per diem personnel, but also some strategies to ensure that there's retention of existing personnel, because after they invest so much time in training personal staff and they get experience, they become really valuable. It's a high cost to losing an employee like that. So there was some attrition, as Joe mentioned, as related to COVID and other things that brought the staffing levels down. So at this point, I'll just turn it over to Brian Parcheski, the CEO of Berkshire Farm, to discuss a little bit about the efforts for staff retention and recruitment.
Thanks, Mark, and good morning, everybody. So Mark hit the nail right on the head. So the pandemic has caused some real significant issues with the ability to recruit staff, not only at Berkshire, I assure you, all over the child welfare system. We're members of COFCO, which has all of the child care agencies together, and it's kind of crisis proportion. So that's something that's going against us. There's just not the number of people entering the workforce or re-entering the workforce that I think there will be maybe early fall. So that's one issue. I think the other issue that's working against us is we do some market analysis of these particular positions as they relate to state positions for secure detention and across the country for secure detention. We're about 20% low. So we have raised much of the rest of our system. There was a point where secure detention was much above all of the other direct care, youth care workers in our system. They are now equivalent. So someone who works in a group home makes the same as secure detention. Someone who works in non-secure detention makes the same as someone who works in secure detention. Our newest program, where we have youth care workers that work with the immigrant population, start at 20-something an hour. So they make far more than those secure detention counselors in a much safer environment. So we are going to ultimately have to look at this is an issue in terms of recruitment and retention. That will be one of the pieces. In the meantime, what we need to do is make sure we're getting our message in front of the people that are interested in these positions and to try and to inspire interest. So with that in mind, we met with the secure detention staff. We know are the experts in, who are we looking for? Where are they? Where do we find them? How do we find them? So they gave us some really good ideas. We also worked with a marketing firm so that we aren't just throwing darts at a board for to get their information to us about where we are finding our target demographic. And then we put together this campaign. Mark, are you able to share what I'd sent you, or I can just maybe share my screen?
I can share, well, I can give you the authority to share your screen if you'd like it.
Great.
So if you have any problems, just let me know.
I think this should do it. Are you able to see that?
We don't see it right now.
Not seeing it yet. How about
There,
now?
it's coming up now.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we, as I said, we brought our HR team together, our marketing team together, the secure detention team together, and we started to talk about, where we recruit, who we recruit, and what we found is our target demographic is really males aged 25 to 49. Now we have a number of females in the facility. They're very successful, so we are not excluding those, but the target is generally males 25 to 49. So we found that these are people that are maybe working other childcare serving agencies like Northern Rivers and some of our competitors, certainly in the capital region. In terms of who they are, these are staff that are mainly, they're often athletic. So we're looking, gyms are a good place. We have 2 staff that are fitness trainers. Also, being able to advertise where these folks are in parks. So a lot of our staff have kind of young children that are playing Little League. So targeting those areas. There's a men's flag football league. Many of them are there. Sports bars is another area that is rich for that. So that's in terms of the where. In terms of what's important to the job seekers, what our staff are telling us is, please look at the pay, which I just mentioned to you. McDonald's, people are making $14.50 an hour, and it's tough to sell their peers and friends on that notion of working here for that wage. Sign-on bonuses are something that they thought were very appealing, so we integrated a sign-on bonus of up to $1,250. The flexible schedules are appealing to people, certainly overtime opportunities. In terms of what motivates our staff to stay, we know that it's a real team environment that Joe and Luke have created over there. Folks have a lot of camaraderie that's important to them. A culture of appreciation and recognition. The overtime is important to them. Most importantly to them is knowing what they do matters. So having a mission. And then we have started offering, last year we started offering self-care days as rewards, or days off as rewards. They seem to really value that as well. So this is in essence, the heart of our marketing campaign, which is already kicked off and will be going full force for at least the next month. We're going to use Geo Fencing for 32 locations, some of where the folks had told us around those parks where the flag football leagues are, the Little League fields are, around some of our competitors' buildings where we know that people who work in the industry are. For those people who are not familiar with Geo Fencing, essentially you drop a pin over a small area, and then every time you walk in that area with your phone on, if your location services are on, it drops a cookie into your phone so that every time on your phone you go to the internet, our ad will come up for a month. So it constantly gets in front of you in this targeted areas, our advertisement for those openings. We're also using Facebook at a pretty low cost for just $1,250, which is pretty low. We're able to get in front of 2,000 to 5,000 people a day with those Facebook ads. In particular, we're going to try something new. We're going to use these Facebook posts using real staff members' pictures and stories about why they're there, what's motivated them to stay there. And some of these guys are quite honestly kind of local heroes, very popular. And I think they're going to be able to share that. And the whole team will share those messages. And we think that will draw people in as well, a very personalized message around detention. Oh, I'm sorry. We kind of turned Joe into a celebrity. So this is Joe at ESPN doing a talk through with a host there. The guys at Detention said this is a very much what folks are listening to in the target demographic, them and their friends. So we are going to do this for a month. There's going to be weekly read-throughs. The target demographic, we're figuring we're going to hit about 45,000 people in that month. So every week a different staff will be featured. This started yesterday. I don't know if anyone caught it, if they've been listening to this, but Joe was fantastic. So, and we also catch a local rock station with this, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what the rock station is, but that came along with a package. Along with, on ESPN, you get free banners and social media and pictures. So constant advertising for that expense. We think this is going to be and produce a lot of fruit. We also are doing a billboard. This is the billboard that you'll see. It's right on 90. we'll get 250 to 400,000 impressions, meaning that's the number of people that will see it in that month, according to the who we purchased it from. And when you go to this, so this will hopefully bring you to our careers page. And what we've done is set up our careers page so that when you see this and you click it, it goes right to the secure detention openings. So it doesn't take you to any of our openings. It takes you right into the secure detention openings with the sign-on bonuses and information about how to apply there. As we talked about before, word of mouth is one of the best marketing tools. People are, this is a strong team over there. We had a $250 internal reward for marketing the program and bringing people in. We moved that to $500. The team is very excited about that, and we're paying it out much earlier. It used to take about a year to get that money. We're going to pay it out at 3 months and 6 months. We'll push that information down through all of the agencies, so communicating that to make sure that everyone understands that that's a new opportunity. And then also anyone that does that, any of those secure staff, they're able to bring in staff, we're going to highlight them in our newsletter in terms of gratitude and recognition, and make sure they're highlighted for the efforts they have. This is essentially what we spent. The ESPN ad is a little more expensive, but the reach is very far. The billboard's about 8,000. The Geo Fencing is very reasonable for the amount of information you get to people in a targeted way. So the cost is about $19,920, which I think is pretty reasonable considering the reach that we're going to put out there. So we are certain that we're going to get in front of the people that we need to get in front of. What we're not certain about is how willing people are to work. That's the part we had talked about before, but it won't be for lack of them knowing that the positions are out there, having a good idea about what that work is and what it does, and the capacity to really do meaningful work. We're going to make sure we get that in front of a lot of people this month.
Great. Well, thanks for walking us through that, Brian. And, very pleased with the detailed plan of action. It's certainly much more robust than throwing an ad in the Times Union. With the geofencing, basically using all of the tools at your disposal for getting in front of people who might be interested in these jobs. It is what's needed. So certainly, kudos to you for putting this plan together, and we hope it pays off. $20,000 is a worthy investment in this effort, so that we can arrive at full staffing, hopefully by the end of this year. I think the two factors here is the overall job market. So as Brian mentioned, we'll get this in front of people, but the pay, is going to be an issue as we work over the course of the next few years to sort of close that 20% gap in where salaries are at detention versus where they are in the overall marketplace. And, this is like, a lesson in economics, supply and demand. Wages will increase as demand for people working, increases. We will, it's in normal times, it's a sort of hefty proposition to increase, wages by 20%. But I think, over the course of the next couple of years, we can sort of close that gap and make sure that these jobs at secure detention are attractive and the pay is commensurate with the, with the positions and the responsibilities at detention. And hopefully that will assist with future recruitment and future retention at the facility. So we'll talk more specifics about that sort of thing as we adopt future budgets. But, as I've communicated to Brian and Berkshire, that the county's put a premium on having a facility that's open and operating safely. And that's a priority versus, how much it's going to cost here and there. While Berkshire's we're all very responsible with our money, just putting out there that we're going to have to spend a little bit more money to make sure we are where we need to be with secure detention staffing. Any questions for Brian or otherwise?
Sounds like a great plan. I really like the idea that you're using existing staff to recruit and highlighting them as local heroes. So they're
truly the experts, and
the
they
best.
really, one thing that we realize is how valued they felt to be included in the process of recruitment. You just can't do enough to get to seek their guidance is very rewarding to them. And you know what? I'm sure they're right.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is the approval of the vaccine incentive program, and that's your memo 2116.
Right, as I noted to the board in previous communications, there's a relatively low reported vaccine rate among the staff in the facility. And, COVID is still a risk, and we certainly don't want to have the facility shut down again because we can't adequately staff it. So there obviously is an interest, among the counties to ensure that the staff can continue to be there. And one of those things that gives us confidence is having them get vaccinated. So up to this point, Berkshire is not going to require staff to get vaccinated as a term of employment. They had existing incentives, including up to 4 hours time off and some other incentives for staff who were able to provide a record of vaccination. I asked Brian and Luke to develop a plan that would provide a more robust incentive to help move the needle on that. And we'll see if it moves the needle. So the proposed incentive, which was already approved by the CDYCI Executive Committee so that Berkshire could begin to implement it, proposes a $100 incentive for staff who can demonstrate that they have been vaccinated. So our estimated cost for all the staff is about $6,000, and that includes the taxes that Berkshire will absorb that would otherwise have to be paid as a component of the staffer's salary. So, as I talked with Joe last week, maybe this incentive coupled with the idea that if you are vaccinated, you may not have to wear a mask in the facility, although the jury's still out whether the setting is going to still require masking. So we do hope it moves the needle. I'll just ask Joe if you've received any additional, information from staff or any additional staff showing you evidence that they've been vaccinated.
No, I've seen some reconsidering where before they were a hard no, that now they've moved some and are considering it. So, and we'll continue with our leadership to encourage our staff on down to get the vaccination. I'm going to have Dr. Sharma come in and be available for staff, schedule a block of time so they can, she can address any of their concerns they may have with the vaccination and see if that helps as well.
Trying to hit it from all sides, and cash incentives, some time off and education certainly is important. There is a large demographic that remains very hesitant about the vaccine. So hopefully we can unhesitate folks with this.
Albany County has a pretty good supply of vaccine, any of the different types if supply is needed. And obviously Mark knows that I'm more than familiar, for better or worse, with the apprehension in getting a vaccine. So
thank you, Mike. On a related note, OCFS distributed last week some guidance related to youth vaccination planning for Berkshire. So it just outlines, decision tree, which, what category of youth, how you make the decision, who needs to approve their vaccination, depending on age and other status. So that's attached for your information. Any questions or comments on the vaccine incentive program or otherwise?
Thank you. I'd like to think that the world we woke up in today is going to be an incentive too for people to reconsider. Having a vaccine gives you a perk out in your personal life too. But okay, I need a motion to accept the vaccine incentive program.
I'll move.
Thank you, Samantha. Second?
second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is the budget amendment, and that's your attachment 20-17.
So this budget amendment is just presented to fund the vaccine incentive program. It's a relatively de minimis amount, relative to the $5 million budget for operations. It's less than 0.1% of the budget, but hopefully it'll be a worthy incentive for that. So just a motion is requested to accept the revised budget.
Any questions on that? Motion to accept?
I'll move.
Thank you, Samantha. Is there a second?
Second.
Let's see who that was. Who was our second on that? Steve,
Steve.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next item is our approval of revised meeting schedule, your attachment 20-18.
I know our meetings are pretty sacred. However, this year, we could not rent our vacation house in Maine in the last week in July. So we had to rent it in the third week in July, which conflicts with our meeting. So I am humbly requesting the board approve shifting our July meeting to July 28th from July 21st.
That works for me.
Motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, next item is our facility use at your attachment 20-19.
You can see in the bar chart, the facility use through the first quarter, was heavily skewed towards the CDY-CI counties and also heavily skewed towards, the SSD side of the facility, which is no surprise there. On the daily population line chart, you can definitely see the longer term trend where the facility is experiencing, higher population in the AO category versus the JD-JO category. And, we anticipate now with having flipped the wings and the ongoing demand for AO beds that trend will continue. And as a reminder, in terms of the existing intake restrictions, that female intake still remains closed pending some additional staffing improvements at Berkshire Farm.
Thank you. Any questions for Mark? Steve, did you have a question or are you frozen over there? Okay, no questions. We'll move on. Item 12, facility operation agency report.
I'll turn it back over to Luke and Joe to give us an update on life in the facility.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, right now, the priority obviously is addressing our current crisis. And then that's moving well. We have pursued some other opportunities. We're waiting for the vendor to come in and finish our broadband expansion. That should be shortly in the very near future. Julie, Brennan, and I have had conversations with other partners to bring in programming for our adolescent offenders. We're looking at a virtual reality vocational training program that has a very expansive menu of occupations, maintenance, security, electrician, plumbing, HVAC, where it's just a matter of virtual reality. And we're hoping to expose our youth to different occupations based on their occupational interests. We're having them conduct a survey when they come in to really measure their interests and what career paths. And then if we can get them to see that there are some other opportunities available to them, that's a win for us all. So those are the things that are in process. Just kind of need to work out the funding. Julie has some funders that really want to commit to this population. They really see the need. So we want to, those things are all in process, and I'll continue to update everyone on how that progresses. It's just been slow now bringing in the programming. I have to make sure I have the staffing to staff the rooms and the additional rooms to do the programming in.
I think one also huge moment we had in security detention. We had our first graduation ceremony in secure detention. We had a young man who graduated high school, and we were planning a large ceremony. However, had to be moved to OCFS rather quickly. We only had a couple days notice that he was moving. And so with the help of Tim Backus over at South Colony School, we were able to get a cap and gown and a diploma for the young man to present it to him. All his peers and many staff from all different shifts came in to support this young man. We had a whole bunch of speakers. Even some youth spoke about how this young man inspired them to stay, and he was able to get his actual diploma. And because of that, when he goes to OCFS, he was able to enroll in community college courses beginning this summer. So he's already going to be ahead of the game when he starts. So it was a really great moment.
Yeah, it was a great event for the staff, for the teachers, for everyone, just to see that. And the youth got up and spoke, and his peers clapping for him. It was quite an event.
Yes, it was a wonderful thing. And it's the first one we had in the facility. So we were many that we would see in the future. That was a great moment. But yes, we continue to work to, even though we're working on the staffing, and that is our struggle, we are not stopping with also our plan to develop new programming to really support these kids and help them move forward, especially with the AO population. So we are continually working on that despite spending a lot of time on staffing now, but we are moving other programming forward to make sure that we can support these youth as best as possible.
We actually we met with the folks from the SNUG program, and they're going to come in. We're going through the screening process now. They know many of our youth, both in Troy and Albany, and they're going to work directly with our youth, and also they'll be their connections when they leave here. So we've made some really good steps for this.
So yeah, we're working hard across, not just educationally, but also so we can keep these youth safe when they leave our facility and hopefully not return to our facility and be able to move forward out when they're outside. And there's going to be a lot more development of aspect, the aftercare aspect in the year to come. Joe and I, especially Joe, has come up with some great plans on things that we're going to be. Are there any questions from anybody about the facility or how we're operating?
Sounds great. Love the story about the graduation. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff. Anyone have any questions, comments?
Well, I'd like to thank Joe, who I think has slept a couple of days in the facility to cover shifts over the past few months. So thank you for your leadership, Joe. You've gone above and beyond the level of service that we can expect, and thank you for steering the ship. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
All the
Thank you
staff.
very much.
Yeah, and the staff and our Mr. Robinson, our assistant, he's I call him the Iron Man now. The hours he's putting in. So.
It's appreciated. Thank you very much.
All right, is there any other business?
So just a couple of things I wanted to go over. When we were trying to move youth, and I'd like to thank Samantha Miller Herrera for her work and assisting with moving the youth. And
yes.
Tim, but it brought up, I think what's become a chronic issue is that judges are not following the guidance that we give to the counties about remand orders. And, not having an open remand reduces the flexibility that we have to move youth either for gang conflict reasons or because we're having a staffing crisis. So I'm going to redouble my efforts to communicate with the district executives in the area just to make sure that they're keeping their judges aware of our preference to have open remands to give us some flexibility of moving youth between locations. An additional attachment to your packet here, OCFS requested that we submit a letter on behalf of the counties to draw down their latest tranche of raise the age reimbursements. So, the long and the short of it's about $100,000 to pay for the bedroom furniture project and some other upgrades. There's a question about reimbursement of the pre-construction costs. I don't know if you can put your time machine hat on, but going all the way back to 2018 when we thought we were going to do a massive capital project at the facility. So just finally getting the counties reimbursed for their expenses for those pre-construction planning costs. But it remains pending. I got an email from OCFS yesterday requesting for me to submit all the backup again for the third time for all these expenses in detail. So we'll do it again if they need it.
And Mark, just as an update on our side, we had a meeting with our county delegation, unfortunately a bit delayed, but we always have a meeting towards the end of session. And this subject came up as something that we pushed, that the state needs to begin processing these sort of things in an adequate amount of time, not to mention they need to kind of start giving us direction on what we're supposed to be doing with the facility moving forward in terms of renovation, expansion, et cetera. So hopefully that'll spur a little bit of movement so that we can kind of begin our processes internally among the member counties.
I keep on, I have requested an update through email from OCFS leadership. And, at this point, they have not heard back from the New York State Division of Budget in terms of timing for, having the facilities begin to look at these expenses again for capital improvements.
Right. Okay.
And one other update, there has been no substantive updates related to the legal matter that we discussed in executive session at our last meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Any other business? Okay, so our next meeting,
Is July 28th.
July 28th.
Yes, unless you want to meet on the 21st, but I'll be in Maine, hopefully having a beer on the beach, probably
Good for you.
chasing around my 2-year-old.
All right.
Greatest state in the union.
Yeah,
right, then.
Mike's was born and raised in Maine, so I'll be sure to.
I have loyalties.
Yeah.
All right, then, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Enjoy the beautiful weather, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.